Today's episode of Ham Radio 2.0 is brought to you by MFJ. MFJ sells antennas, analyzers, connectors, meters, amps, and accessories. Extensive research and development goes into the ham radio communication hobby business. New products are constantly on the horizon as MFJ realizes that to stay on top, it must continue to create and innovate. The main source for inspiration for new products comes from MFJ's growing customer base. MFJ receives many letters and phone calls from its clients requesting new equipment to be built. Other requests come in formally, in person, and in Hamfests. For anything ham radio related, shop mfjenterprises.com. Hey folks, this is Jason at Ham Radio 2.0. I'd like to invite you to come see me at the Orlando Hamcation booth 217 on February 10th and 11th of this year. This will be my first time to attend the Hamcation, and I'm looking very forward to it. I'm planning to have a booth set up to promote this video series with flyers and t-shirts from the series, and I want to be doing interviews of people who come by the booth. This is a new venture for me to promote the video series from a booth inside of a Hamfest. I have 2 more events planned this year for the same type of promotion, one at the Houston Hamfest and one in Claremore, Oklahoma for the Green Country Hamfest, but the Orlando Hamcation will be the first one of the year, and I'm hoping you can make it out to the show and come see me at booth 217. 73, thank you for watching and your support of this series, and I hope to see you in Orlando. Good afternoon. Welcome to Ham Radio 2.0. My name is Jason. I'm KC5HWB, and this episode is going to be another episode from the Cowtown Hamfest that happened January 21st, 2017. They are one of the Fort Worth clubs in Fort Worth, Texas, and this presentation is given by Mark KD5RXT, Kilo Delta 5, Romeo X-Ray Tango, and it is titled How to Connect AREDN and BBHN routers together in one happy network. So this is dealing with mesh networking. You can go back and watch my episode 76 about how to set up AREDN firmware. AREDN is AREDN. It's Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. If you just Google that name, you can find their website real easily. And my episode 76 takes a Ubiquiti Nano station and straight out of the box, very stock firmware on it. And it updates the firmware to a specific version for Ubiquiti, and then it loads the AREDN firmware onto there, and I'd configure it to use with mesh networking here in the North Texas, Grapevine, Mid-Cities area. So I've got an episode upcoming that I'm working on right now about deploying this node, connecting it to the network, and showing you guys what it looks like when it sees several other nodes in the area. But this episode that Mark put on the he did an episode about unboxing a stock router, loading AREDN firmware onto it, and putting it up on the network. And that's great, but that's what my episode 76 is about. It's basically the same thing. So, but I am interested to get his take on it, so I went ahead and recorded it, and I'll probably put that up at a later date, kind of later on after, because I just posted an AREDN episode 76. This episode will be another AREDN mesh episode, so I kind of want to spread them out a little bit. So I'll probably post his how to set up a stock router out of the box episode later on. So you'll see that upcoming, but I'm not going to post that right now. So this again, Mark KD5RXT presented this at the Cowtown Hamfest, hosted by the Cowtown Amateur Radio Club outside of Fort Worth, Texas, in January of 2017. And he goes through, and I watched. I haven't watched all of it yet. I watched part of it, and I recorded the whole thing, but I didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing at the show because I was busy with other tasks. But he goes through and he shows you how to connect the two networks together, make them talk to one another to where you can still use your the Linksys WRT Blue routers that a lot of the BBHN guys use. In short, my opinion is that you should just upgrade to AREDN with the Ubiquiti routers, which are commercial grade, and in the long run are going to save you money, because if you want to, unless you're running a mesh network indoors, if you want to put an outdoor network up, you're going to have to buy antennas and enclosures to put your Linksys router into if you're running outdoors. You could use the stock Linksys antennas, but they're not going to go very far. So this Ubiquiti Nano Station right here comes with, it's got a built-in sector antenna with the radio, and it comes with the power over Ethernet adapter. It comes with everything you need. It's like $70 on Amazon with free shipping. So eventually I think most people are going to upgrade to AREDN, because also they've got a few more channels available to them. But let's take a look at that. Again, I don't know of a way to make the BBHN stuff talk on the ham only channels, but let's see what Mark has to say about it. Maybe he goes over that. Maybe he covers that. I haven't watched that part of the video yet. So 73 guys, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about this video.
Good morning, and at the risk of boring those who have already seen a couple presentations this morning, if you don't know me, I'm Mark Hallross, Kilo Delta 5 Romeo X-Ray Tango. Been licensed for about 14 years. I'm definitely wet behind the ears as far as ham radio experience goes, but I do like to play with things and I do like to figure things out, and it's also fun for me to forward that information to other people so I can help them learn what I've learned along the way. I certainly wasn't born knowing all this stuff. I had to learn it just like everybody else. This presentation is on how to connect an AREDN mesh network and a BBHN mesh network into one big happy family network. So with that, these are the topics we're going to cover today. BBHN versus AREDN, the decision which one am I going to run, how to configure a Linksys for DTD, configuring a Netgear switch, a particular Netgear switch for DTD with for use with the Ubiquiti router. We're going to demonstrate putting that all to work, and then we'll have time for questions and discussion. So the big question, BBHN versus AREDN, used to be you had to decide up front. Some of that is driven by which hardware you would like to use. If you use an old Linksys WRT54GL or one related, you must run BBHN. If you buy new Ubiquiti hardware, you have a choice of BBHN or AREDN, and that used to be an exclusive choice. If you configured your, let's take the Ubiquiti for example, if you configured your Ubiquiti router for AREDN, you did not talk to BBHN nodes. If you configured your Ubiquiti router for BBHN, you did not talk to AREDN nodes. And that's kind of bad, because if you walk into an emergency situation and you want to participate on the mesh network, that means you need to know what kind of mesh they have and have the proper firmware loaded in your mesh node. Okay, so after today's presentation, with a little bit of extra work and maybe one additional piece of hardware, you can actually get away from having to make that decision and or have two different sets of hardware. You can make them all play nicely together. And this capability is called DTD. DTD stands for device to device. I'm going to be able to connect router devices to each other and have them connect by wire as opposed to by RF. And the key point down there at the bottom is all devices on each network can see all devices on both networks after we're done. Okay, so there will be terminology in here that was new to me. I definitely do not claim to be an expert on anything, especially on networking. I will try to answer any questions I can. If I don't know the answer, I can certainly either find the answer or find somebody who knows the answer. But one of the subjects that will be heavily involved in this is tagged versus untagged. What does tagged versus untagged mean? Okay, this is a description actually from a Netgear website on the GS105E. That's a particular Netgear switch that we're going to be using. And this is their description of how tagging works. So there are 5 bullets there. I will read them to you, and I will try to explain what they mean in English. So I've got a network packet coming into a particular port on my switch. If it is an untagged packet, okay, so let's stop right there. What does it mean, tagged versus untagged? The low-level network protocols, Ethernet, have very specific fields in the packets of data. The fields that we need to be worried about here are who is the packet from, who is the packet to, and what kind of protocol is being used. Okay, so let's say I'm doing streaming video. It's going to be an H.260, whatever it is, H.264 video protocol. if that packet is tagged, literally it's like taking a packet, you know, this big, and I'm using my hands here, this big, and putting additional information on the front of it and on the back of it and making it this big. Okay, so the additional information that gets put on is what VLAN does this packet belong to, and at the back end it's extra error checking. So if it's untagged, it's just a raw video packet. Doesn't have the tagging information on the front, doesn't have the extra information on the back. So I've got an untagged packet coming into a port. My switch will add the tagging information to that previously untagged packet. And the tag it adds is the VLAN ID of that port. Okay, now that probably doesn't mean anything yet. Let's just keep right on going. So, second bullet, a tagged packet entering a port will be passed without modification. In other words, I'm not going to add anything extra to it, I'm not going to take anything off of it. It's going to be passed to the VLAN that is specified by the VLAN ID in that tag, that extra information that's already on there. Third one, a packet entering through a port that's a member of the same VLAN that's specified by the VLAN ID. In other words, it's coming in a particular port. That port is a member of a specific VLAN, and the tag on the VLAN ID on the tagged packet matches the VLAN that I'm a member of. Then it will be also sent to the other ports that are members of the same VLAN. So, in other words, I've got red packets, blue packets, green packets. I'm a member of the blue group. If I get a blue packet, I will give it to everybody else that's a member of the blue group. That's what that's saying. Packet entering through a port that is not a member of the VLAN specified by the VLAN ID. Okay, again, I'm a member of the blue group. I get a red packet, but I am not a member of the red group. I'm going to throw that packet away. It is not important to me. I only want packets that are members of the blue group. And I'm using colors here just as an analogy. That's not what it is actually in the real packets. Okay, and then finally, packets leaving the switch through any given port are either tagged or untagged based on the configuration for the VLAN to which the port belongs. Okay, so if this port is a tagged port in the blue group, I'm going to add a blue tag to it. If this port is not a member of any of the groups, I'm not going to add any tags to it on the way out. Okay, so that's kind of underlying there. And you'll probably have to go back to this and reread it multiple times, and as you play and discover where packets are going and what they're doing, this may make more sense. It's still very, very cloudy to me. Okay, so DTD capability was actually in the BBHN firmware, and they had to disable it in version 1.1 that series, because it was discovered that there were some network devices, the ones that use the Realtek chips and or cards, that didn't operate well with tagged and untagged data on the same port. So the decision was made, well, let's just turn DTD off. And anybody that needs DTD can turn it on, and if they have any Realtek based devices, they'll just know not to use it on a combined tagged and untagged port. Okay, and the symptom was that those devices that were Realtek based actually couldn't maintain a continuous connection over the Ethernet interface. But the capability is still in there, so DTD can be enabled on individual ports. That's the holes in the back, the plugs, on a WRT54G as desired. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? We're going to actually remotely log into our Linksys box. I'm not connected to my Linksys box at the moment. I'm going to use PuTTY. There are other applications available, but PuTTY is available for download on the BBHN website. I'm going to PuTTY in, and I'm going to PuTTY in with a protocol of SSH. And on the mesh nodes, normally SSH would use port 22. Here, to make it unique and avoid conflicts, they use port 2222. So you're going to PuTTY in to your Linksys box on port 2222. You're going to log in as the user root, and you're going to use whatever password you set when you set your box up, when you configured it. You're going to edit this specific file at /etc/VLAN. Okay, there will be a line in there that starts with the words option VLAN 0. And it's going to look very similar to this without the T's. So it's going to say option VLAN 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all in quotes. Those numbers may be different on your specific router. So just be aware, whatever is on your router, that's what you want to duplicate. On mine, this happens to be what it is. So you're going to duplicate the option VLAN 0 line. You're going to change the VLAN 0 indicator to VLAN 2, and you're going to add T, Tango, after each of them, lowercase specifically. Okay, so that is literally telling the router firmware, I want all 5 of my ports to be tagged ports. Okay, again, with the warning that if you've got Realtek-based devices, you may not want to do all 5. You may just want to do 1, or you may just want to do 4, and leave a 5th not tagged so you can use your Realtek device. In my case, I've got, my laptop actually uses a Realtek chip, but it's a new enough Realtek chip that they fix this problem, so I don't have to be concerned. So I make all 5 of mine a tagged interface, and that way I don't have to remember which hole to plug into. They all work. Okay, and if you're a VI new user, the magic incantation for exiting and saving that file is :WQ exclamation point, commonly known as :WQ bang. I would never recommend that somebody new to Linux use VI. On the other hand, it's always there. No matter what Linux box you log into, VI is available. Like for instance, in the Raspberry Pi world, Nano is used a lot, but Nano doesn't exist on all Linux boxes. So I prefer to use the base level tools here. I like the extra challenge of using the old clunky tools. I say that very much with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek. Okay, so I'm going to edit a second file. It's /etc/config.mesh/network. And there is a command there that will be on a line of its own that says option auto no. I want to actually put a pound sign in front of that line. In this case, you see I put a pound and a space. It doesn't matter. The pound sign needs to be in the far left column. Whatever else is after it doesn't matter, because the pound sign in the far left column means that line is commented out. So add a pound sign at the far left column in front of that option auto no line. Save that file, same way, :WQ bang, enter. And you now have edited the 2 files necessary to tell the Linksys you want to do DTD on all of its ports, in my case 1 through 5. Okay, so that's the Linksys world. What do you have to do on the Ubiquiti world? Well, if you own any Ubiquiti devices, the majority of them have a single network interface. That network interface does every job that network related. It also provides power to the box. So I have only a single network interface. So if I'm running that to acquire power, my PoE injector, power over Ethernet injector, has a second port, which is my LAN port. Okay, so I have one, it's like a 1-port switch. I have 1 network port available off of that Ubiquiti router, and Murphy would make sure that got tangled. All right, so if I want to hook multiple devices up to my Ubiquiti router, I have to provide some kind of external switch that has multiple ports. The Netgear GS105 Echo specifically, and the Netgear GS108 Echo are 2 switches which do this very well. They are pseudo-managed switches. Now, if you're a Cisco CCNE, you will be very familiar with what it means to be a managed switch. And if you're a Cisco CCNE, you will probably laugh heartily and say a GS105E and a GS108E is not a managed switch, but that's okay. It acts like a managed switch enough that it does the VLAN job. That's what we're after. I say that tongue-in-cheek because I work with a very good network engineer, and he told me to throw all my Netgear GS105Es away. And I reminded him that I'm a cheap ham. I already own them. I'm not going to throw them away. I just need to make them work. Okay, so we're going to use, in this case, a GS105E switch. And I'm going to use the Netgear ProSafe Plus configuration utility. Either comes with your switch or is available on Netgear's website. I'm going to, okay, so, and we'll have a picture of this in a second. I'm going to have to select my switch in particular. It's going to immediately prompt me to log in. The only thing I need to log into that is the password that I set on the switch. If I didn't set the password on the switch, Netgear does you a huge favor, and on the back sticker it reminds you that the default password is PASSWORD, all lowercase. Very nice. And if you ever set a password and forget it, there's a hard reset switch, so you can put it back to PASSWORD, all lowercase. Okay, so I just need to provide that password to log in. So it's going to either be that as the default or whatever I set. I'm going to click on the VLAN tab and I'm going to select 802.1Q and advanced. Okay, so let's look at a picture of that. Here's my VLAN tab, here's my 802.1Q, and here's my VLAN. What did I say on the previous one? Advanced. Yeah, 802.1Q and advanced. There's the advanced, I'm sorry. Okay, so there will be three choices below that. You have to set these in the order that they appear from top to bottom. So the first one is, what VLANs do I have? By default, you will have a VLAN 01. That means everybody, everything. Okay. You're going to define a VLAN 02, a VLAN 10, and a VLAN 20. Sometimes you'll see those referred to as 1, 2, 10, and 20. These numbers over here will not show up immediately because they're going to be set farther down in the menu. But front end, you have to define 4 VLANs, 01, 02, 10, and 20. Next screen you go to, you're going to pick each of those 4 VLANs from this pull-down menu, and for each of them you are going to set these boxes as indicated here. Okay, let me take a side jaunt for a second. You say, oh gosh, I can't write this down fast enough and I can't take pictures of all these. All of my presentations are available on my Google Drive, and at the end I'll give you the link if you're really good about writing things down fast, but I don't recommend that. There's also a hard copy paper available up front that has that Google Drive link. You can go there and pull this presentation off the Google Drive, my Google Drive, and thereby you have all these settings, because these settings are very, very particular and unique to make this work. Okay, so as the example here, it says for VLAN 1, I want port number 1 to be a tagged interface, I want port number 4 to be a tagged interface, and I want port number 5 to be an untagged interface. In other words, those 3 ports are going to participate in VLAN 1. Okay, likewise, VLAN 2, port 1 and port 4 are going to be members of VLAN 2, and they are both going to be tagged interfaces. VLAN 10, only port 1, 2, and 3 will be participants, and they will all be untagged. VLAN 20, only port 4 will be a participant in VLAN 20, and it will be an untagged port. Okay, I should step back for just a second and tell you. The way I use my switches and the way this configuration shows, port 1 always is my connection to my Ubiquity router. I call it the node port. Okay, so port 1 is connected to the Ubiquity. Ports 2 and 3 are anything I want to connect into that Ubiquity. Laptops, cameras, whatever else you may. Port 4 is the one.
You said Ubiquity, you are talking about AREDN / Ubiquity.
It doesn't matter. BBHN or AREDN. I'm sorry?
It's still port 15?
Yes, that's correct. Okay, so the question was, and I don't know how well this microphone picks up. The question was, when I say Ubiquity, I'm referring to an AREDN / Ubiquity, but it actually doesn't matter, AREDN or BBHN. I can use this Netgear GS105E with either of those firmwares on a Ubiquity. Does that answer the question? Okay, all right, so back to the ports. Port 4 is what's called the DTD port. That's the port I will use to connect to another node, whatever it is, whether it's a Linksys, a Ubiquity, an AREDN, or a BBHN. Okay, and then port 5, then this is part of the configuration that you may want to change. I have port 5 designated as my internet input. So if a particular node is providing input, it comes in on port 5. So what that means is I can't use port 5 for anything but internet. I can't use port 4 for anything but DTD. But I have 2 and 3 available. Okay, so I'm using a 5-port switch. If you find that you need to connect more than 2 devices to your Ubiquity, two external devices, not DTD, but cameras, clients, then you might want to consider using the GS108E, because then that gives you 3 more ports that you can play with. So 1 is always my node, 2 and 3 are my consumers, 4 is my DTD, and 5 is my internet. Okay, so And then the final configuration is for a given port, what is its primary VLAN ID? Okay, so you see here 1, 2, and 3 are primarily on VLAN 10, 4 is primarily on VLAN 20, and 5 is primarily on VLAN 1. What does that mean? Remember in the description it said if I get a packet and I'm a tagged, and my port is designated as a tagged port, I will apply the tag of the VLAN ID for that port. So this is the tag number that's going to get applied to those incoming packets. All right, so now let's open for questions right quick before we actually bring this all up and make it play. Any questions? I know you're drinking through a fire hose here, so.
Switch on those unmanaged ports.
I'm sorry, say it again?
I plug a switch into the switch on those unused ports.
Can you plug a switch into the switch on the unused ports? Yes. So if you want to extend out to more ports, you can plug let's call it a generic switch, not a VLAN configured switch. You can plug a generic switch into either port number 2 or port number 3 and thereby have 4 more, if it's a 5-port switch, 4 more ports on each of those, yes.
Newbie question.
Go ahead.
Do you figure getting the internet through a LAN port?
Yes, that's correct.
So why did we skip the LAN port?
Okay, so the question was, I'm getting internet through a LAN port. On the Ubiquitys, again, they only have a single network interface coming out. So the switch is doing the smarts to decide whether data needs to go to the internet or comes from the internet, all on that port number 5 by way of this configuration. So that's an under the covers 802.1q functionality. By configuring the switch correctly and designating port 5 as an internet port, anybody on the mesh will then have internet access provided through that switch, through that router. Did that answer the question? Okay, other questions?
Okay, well, this is all hardwired. What if you have one of the Ubiquity gateways or this box back here has the bullet up on the top, and then I have the wire or the gateway LR underneath it for $34 and puts it out. Now it's on channels 1 through 12.
Okay, I don't know what a gateway is, and so I'm sorry. I'll repeat the question. What if you have one of your nodes and it has a gateway, as opposed to doing this via
Ubiquity gateway.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the Ubiquity gateway, so I don't know what job it's doing for you. But let me back up one step and look at a little bit bigger picture. This is for, I've got a BBHN network running over here on one side of me, and I've got an AREDN network running over on the other side of me. Because of the difference in SSIDs, those two networks will not talk to each other over RF. So they are two islands and cannot see each other. So what this capability is providing you is the ability to essentially designate one BBHN node and one AREDN node and cross-connect them through a VLAN configured switch. Then all traffic on the BBHN side will propagate through to the AREDN side, and all traffic on the AREDN side will propagate through to the BBHN side. Now it looks like one big continuous network. That's what this is doing for you. So I'm not sure how that relates to the gateway capability.
The gateway just, you have to change the ID on the BBHN to AREDN, and then one AREDN network.
Okay, so that's kind of the old-fashioned approach where you change the SSID on one or the other of the networks, and therefore they're all on a single SSID. The problem with that is it works today, it may not work forever. The AREDN folks have said they don't guarantee that they will always be compatible in such a way that you can just change the SSID. So this is solving it at the wired level and letting them operate independently at the RF level. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, why aren't we setting the, I guess my first question is why do we have a switch in the middle versus having the links switch, right? If we really configure that.
Okay. So the question was, why do we have an actual external GS105E switch as opposed to using the built-in Linksys switch? No reason, other than if you have all Ubiquitys, you would have to have a GS105E. So if you have a Linksys in there and you have enabled the DTD capability on your Linksys, certainly you can use that to plug the two devices together.
Two Ubiquitys working through a single
Yes, that will certainly, if you've enabled the DTD capability and you've, yeah, it certainly, using the Linksys switch configured correctly, it will do the same thing as the GS105E is doing for the Ubiquity.
I figured I'd use a Linksys switch instead of going the other way. I could use it for that.
Right. There have been some reports of the Linksys switch eventually, over time, going deaf and having, you have to reset the box, but it was never pinned down exactly what was going on there. So there were people who were actually disabling the built-in switch on the Linksys and adding an external switch to it, which would give you a little more reliable switch capability. But I don't. That's been a while ago. I participated in the beta tests for the AREDN guys when they first started developing the software, and there were a lot of hinky things that came out of using the Linksys, and that was one of the reasons why they decided they were just going to divorce themselves from the Linksys and go with all Ubiquity capability. Okay, so what do we have? I have here.
Quick question while you're picking up your cable.
Sure.
Once you make that mod with the software and the firmware on the 54G, that doesn't affect it talking to other 54Gs, and you still.
That's correct. It does.
The mesh can still get back and get to your
Yes.
AREDN node, and if the AREDN node is providing the internet, it can get out to the internet.
Yes, so the question was, once you've added the DTD capabilities to the Linksys, you have not actually disabled anything else. It still acts like a mesh node and connects in the way it has previously been able to. What you've just added is the VLAN tagging capability. So yeah, you haven't actually disabled anything else. Okay.
Quick.
Sure thing, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's say you have 4 link systems on
Okay.
one D2D enabled. Would you enable D2D on the others or not?
Okay, no. Okay, so the question was, if I have 4 Linksys and I've enabled DTD on one of them, would I need to enable DTD on the others? No, you only need to use DTD if you're talking to a network that is not RF compatible. Okay, so that would be BBHN versus AREDN, 2.4 gigahertz AREDN versus 5.8 gigahertz AREDN, that kind of thing. If they're already talking to each other over the mesh, DTD doesn't come in at all. It's only when you need to connect separate networks.
There's only one would have to have that configuration.
Actually, you want to do that with different channels.
Yes, you can do that as well. You can use, that's a good point. You can use the DTD capability to connect networks that are, even though they're RF compatible, they are on different channels. So you can have right, multiple channels. I'm going to do this differently. All right, so I need to drag something from outside. Hold on. Actually, no, I don't. We already have it cross-connected at the other end. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling for a second because I'm trying to remember what we were going to show. Okay, so I'm going to put my laptop on my 2.4 gigahertz AREDN node. And I'm going to go to my browser, and I'm going to take this out. So now that I am connected to my mesh node, I want to go to local node :8080. I happen to be in an AREDN 2.4 gigahertz node. If I go look at mesh status, okay, and let me also explain where the switch is. So in the building we have 3 5.8 gigahertz Ubiquities running AREDN. Those 3 are carrying internet and camera feed because we're actually streaming camera video out to a website in England, and from there anybody around the world can see what's going on at our Hamfest. They're on they're 5.8 gigahertz devices because we wanted to stay out of the 2.4, which is very noisy and very overpopulated. Even here, yes, in 2.4 we have the -2 channel capability, but right now those 3 5.8s without the DTD switch connected downstairs would only be able to see themselves and nobody else. We have a DTD switch downstairs, and we have connected into the DTD port a 2.4 gigahertz AREDN node. And so now my 2.4 AREDN and my 5.8 are one big family. Okay, so well, that's not real impressive because it's AREDN and AREDN. Okay, but let's look at that. So U503, U502, and U501 are my 5.8 gigahertz, if you want to call it, infrastructure devices.
Are you using the 5 in the U50 series as dedicated 5
That is correct. That's my convention. So the question was, what is the 5 significant here? Yeah, the U means ubiquity, L means Linksys. In my designators, 5 means 5.8 gigahertz. Nothing or 2 means 2.4 gigahertz. And then the last 2 digits are just unique serial number for each of them. We've also contemplated adding an A or a B at the end of it for AREDN versus BBHN, but you really don't need that because you can always log into it and see which one is running. Okay, so here, for example, is U213, which is a 2 gigahertz AREDN node. If I were to log into that or click into that, you can see it's also running AREDN. Okay, and if I hook, need one more network cable. Start over. I'm on a 2 gigahertz device. My cameras are on a 5.8 gigahertz device. So I can open a browser window to MJC Cam, and I am over my 2.4 gigahertz AREDN node getting my video that's out on my 5.8 gigahertz mesh. Okay, so you can see those two are playing nicely together. We do not actually have, those guys are up, right? So let's see if I do this. I can do that without killing my cable. What's that? I don't have enough cable for that. And I may not have DTD enabled on that guy. Do you have DTD enabled on yours? No. Okay, we need to go make a quick edit. Well, let's just say this. If I were to turn DTD on that Linksys node, we have 3 Linksys nodes in here that are all running BBHN only, then we'd be able to see those 3 additional nodes. But you can tell that we're cross-connected because of the 2.4 to 5.8. So I can, now a couple wave my hands here. I prefer to, the node that I hook my camera up to, I prefer to actually assign a fixed IP address to that camera, because then one of the favors that the mesh node does for me is it advertises that name, and therefore I can access my camera as MJC Cam instead of 10.100.122. Whatever it may be. I do not have to know its IP address. The mesh network takes care of resolving that name for me. So I'm on a 2.4 gigahertz node, and I say I want to go to MJC Cam. The mesh network is going to resolve that name to an IP address and know which node it's on, and the stream is now being carried across the mesh. Like, yes.
I don't know the camera myself, but I use the MAC addresses, and that's how I use it.
Okay, so the point was you can also use the MAC address to access the camera, but again that means you need to know the MAC address, as opposed to if I go to the status page, U503.
Name was the MAC address, so with the IP address changes, the name of the camera means
Okay, so the name is associated with the MAC address. I guess that's MAC address filtering or something similar. Okay, not familiar with using that in the mesh network, but if you assign it a fixed IP address in the node, then the node advertises that name, and I can access that name from any of my devices across the network. This happens to be our second camera. Okay, so the first camera is on the 5.8 gigahertz mesh. The second camera is on the 2.4 AREDN mesh. And if we were to able to cross, since I didn't prepare that, I just made that router in the last hour. If I was to go edit that and add DTD capability to that, then I would be able to go to any of my 2.4 BBHN nodes and likewise access this camera. Okay, so the point being, it's one big happy network. And we have accomplished what we set out to accomplish. Questions? Yes, sir.
When you go from your node to another node, is there any way that you can tell what type of device that node is, whether it's a nanostation or Pico or AirGrid or whatever? From the control interface, the browser interface. Okay, so the question was, if I click into a device out on the mesh, can I tell what kind of hardware it is, Ubiquiti or Linksys, and what if it's a Ubiquiti, whether it's specifically a bullet, a rocket, or a nanostation. So from the browser interface, no. But if you were to SSH into that node over the network, that is, go to the command line interface, I believe there's a I want to say a profile file. I can't remember the exact name of it, but there is a file that tells you what the hardware is. So you can access that file.
Are these status page with the link, the net tell you?
Let's check. Okay, so the suggestion was if I go to OLSR status, is it links topology? Yeah. No, it's only by IP address and by name, which unless you, if you encoded it in the name, you could sell, but yeah.
Certain devices used to have a 10 dot whatever address that was always a bullet or something.
Yep.
I think that may have changed.
Yeah, so basically you can name it anything you want, so it would be up to you to encode that in the name, but not directly from the web interface unless you provided that information, you couldn't. But certainly from the SSH interface, you could actually look at the profile file. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, one of the things that the North Texas AREDN group has done is to agree on a consensus node name convention. And of course, everything is all lowercase. That was recommended by our IT Cisco guy. So it's a call sign, dash, and for example, the node we have in Murphy is AM5BZ dash BU20 dash Murphy 85. The BU stands for bullet, 2 stands for 2 gigahertz, O is omnidirectional, and the rest of the suffix there is descriptive. It's Murphy, the 85 means 85 feet in the air. So we've got RK for rocket, we've got BU for
Okay.
NS for nanostation. So that convention really helps when you see people in the neighborhood,
Right.
remote node, to tell what kind of node it is, where it is, and if it's elevated, how high it is.
Okay, so the point that was made is that there is a suggested naming convention put together by the AREDN working group. Is that where can somebody go to find that definition of the naming convention?
It's on the North Texas AREDN Google group. It's in the file section.
Okay, on the North Texas AREDN Google group in the file section.
I will send that to you.
Okay.
Get the link in there so you
Okay.
can look at it. And again, it's strictly volunteer. Some people don't do it, others do, but we found it very useful.
Okay, so if you name your router by the naming convention, then others can tell what band it's in, what type of device it is, and then there's a description after that that lets you put some other kind of descriptor on.
It's an income situation, and you're at it's a tactical call you need, like evac 2 or hospital 1. You just suffix it like that.
Okay, very good, very good.
Click on that KD5OUG, join that one.
Okay,
You can see,
let me go back to the previous. It's easier to get to from here. Oh, okay, so there's an example. Doug has his named. KD5OUG is his call. BU says it's a bullet. 20 is the 2 gigahertz band. And then,
go ahead and access it. Join.
Before you leave that, click quit.
sorry. Okay, what am I looking at, Doug?
Well, there's the name.
Yeah.
There's the name of my
Yeah.
station.
Okay, so you said before leaving here, click quit. quit goes out of that menu.
I'm sorry, stop.
Oh, okay.
Automatic refresh,
Yep.
that's a dangerous thing, because it's continually pinging the network and slowing things down.
Yep.
Stop.
Yep. So I had it on auto refresh so that we could see as we the intent was I was going to add a whole nother network and we watched those pop up, but
One of the things I'm going to suggest to the AREDN guys is they change the user interface so that if you do put your node in the automatic refresh, that the quit button goes away because it's ambiguous. Quit and stop are synonym. So they need to make it idiot proof so that
Right.
once you go in there, the only button you can push is to stop the automatic refresh. And then when it goes back to the screen here, it makes
Right,
that stop
right.
button go away.
okay. Other questions? All right. Well, did I already say it? If you have any questions throughout the day, find somebody with a pink badge or a pink shirt, and they can certainly answer any questions you have and or provide any help that you need. Thanks for coming.
Good.
Here we are at the Cowtown Hamfest 2017. This is Jason with Ham Radio 2.0. Got everything set up here. Plenty of t-shirts available. Got the new Connect System CS580. Titera MD380. You're live on Facebook. Is that it?
Yep, so you're all done. That's
Oh, look at that.
experimental firmware.
You know what that is? That's the MD380 tools loaded onto. Now, is that your code plug?
No, no, it's yours. I didn't,
Oh, it is mine.
Yeah, I didn't touch yours.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I didn't recognize it. Oh, it's set for the open spot. That's why. That's why I don't recognize it.
Now,
Yeah.
if you want to use the experimental firmware, you've got to make some changes. You've got to tell it to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Where do you?
So
Where
go
in the
menu, and
Uh-huh.
then just go down. So you see utilities, okay, and then MD380 tools. And then the biggest thing is you'll want to use user CVS because that'll display the enable on that.
Okay.
And let's see. Actually, that's it.
That's it?
That's what does it. And then if you ever want to put in promiscuous mode, they're in that same area. It
Yeah.
says promiscuous.
Oh, okay. So it'll listen to all the talk groups then.
Right.
Gotcha.
So now if somebody transmits, it'll come up with that 4 lines of data.
I need to switch it over to the repeater. Let's see. Let's go to. This code plug's old enough. I don't even have Arlington in here yet. Let's go to Fort Worth. Okay, there we go.
Cool.
Let's see if anybody hears from. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'm on Metro right now. Yeah. I hear you on my Motorola, but this is not picking it up. Yeah, it doesn't pick up Fort Worth. It doesn't pick up Fort Worth very good from inside here. Ricky, say hi to everybody on Facebook.
Hello.
Well, it's okay. It's JD calling. It's fine. I'm sure if you were calling me, we were talking over here at the Hamfest. Jason, the show.
What are you doing?
Live on Facebook. live on Facebook.
Watch our general class on Facebook.
Yeah, man, I've gotten so many good reports on that general class. It's not even funny.
I heard someone tell me
A lot
that
of people.
they took the tech online and they came in and said, they took the test and said, we took the tech class on.
Yeah. I get emails from people 2 or 3, 4 times a month about both of those classes.
Good.
So I got to find an extra class now.
Yeah, we're not up for that.
Yeah. North Richmond Hills, I think, is going to do another one, and I've asked them to film it. So yeah.
The RF open spots, they're not available right now.
No. No, the next shipment, I sold out of the ones for January. The next shipment will be here at the end of February. I've got a lot left of those that haven't sold yet, but I have.
Oh, okay. You have an order.
I have two pre-orders. One for January, one for February. The January ones are sold.
Okay.
The February ones are not sold all the way yet. So they're $215 free shipping. So I could probably knock a little bit off for you and not ship it to you. So they're about, if you order from Estonia, which is where they're made, and convert the euros to dollars and pay for shipping, they're about $218, $19. The price fluctuates between euros and dollars sometimes, something like that. So
if you threw me one of those, I'd drop that.
I'll think about that. Yeah. What I'm really looking for is another. I need another HF reg going in my wife's car. What I'd like to find is this IC 7000 or maybe a 706. But that, a little bit too big. My wife's car's got it. My wife has got an Escape.
How do you feel, what about the Asus new one, the one that they upgrade from the 57?
That would be, yeah, that's the 891. I had one of those for a while that I was doing a video on. I like it, but I like the Icon better. That's just my personal preference.
See, that's my thing too. Is Icon. Now I grew to love this radio.
Yeah.
But I've always had Icon for my HF.
Yeah.
And I tend to favor Yancey for my VHF UHF.
Yeah. See, I like the Icons better for the HF. Well, for the mobile HF, and I like the Kenwoods better for the VHF UHF. But again, that's just my personal preference. So, no, I got a live video going here, and Noel says hi. That's okay.
No. Stop by my booth.
Yeah, it gives me on the screen here. It'll tell me who's watching, and if they say anything, they can type to you. Yeah, that's kind of neat. So, let's see. I'm going to go up to the front door here. Say hi, Val. You're on Facebook.
Val. On TV.
Your buddy needs you up there.
Okay, I'll go up there. Oh, boy. They opened the doors here, so saw people start coming in. There's the front door. Live on Facebook, Corey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm very photogenic.
Yeah, you are very photogenic. That's true.
I'm
yeah.
candy here.
Yeah. That's not saying a whole lot, is it?
No.
No, it's not. Okay.